Of course, Angel Reese would fake an injury after this wonderful layup attempt, calling for a foul without being touched. By the way, all this happened, nobody touched her.
React to the visual. A player hitting the deck, clutching a limb, demanding a whistle when the nearest defender is in a completely different zip code. This isn't just a bad basketball play. It is a desperate attempt to rewrite a catastrophic afternoon on the court. We are watching a professional athlete prioritize amateur theatrics over basic fundamental gameplay, and doing it on national television without a hint of shame. But to truly grasp why this specific moment is exploding online and drawing so much relentless fire from critics across the internet, we have to look past the fake limp. We have to look at the undeniable, verifiable numbers that forced this theatrical performance in the first place. This wasn't an isolated accident. It was a carefully deployed escape hatch from a statistical nightmare, and it reveals a much deeper problem with how this specific league operates.
Angel Reese versus the Chicago Sky. Chicago Sky are 9-17. 8 points, 3 of 13, 23% from the field. Threw in 5 rebounds, 5 whole rebounds, and 3 turnovers.
The numbers are absolutely brutal, and they tell a story that the mainstream sports media completely refuses to touch. The team is sitting at an abysmal 9-17 on the season. In this specific matchup, we are looking at a grand total of 8 points, 3 of 13 from the floor. Let that sink in for a moment. That is a devastating 23% shooting rate. You are looking at a supposed marquee talent, a heavily promoted draft pick, pulling down a mere 5 rebounds while coughing up the ball 3 separate times. These are not the statistics of a generational game changer. These are the numbers of a severe offensive liability. When the reality of your performance on the hardwood is this grim, you really only have 2 choices as a competitor. You can put your head down, hit the practice facility, rework your broken fundamentals, and take public accountability for letting your squad down. Or you can look for an immediate exit strategy. You can manufacture a distraction. You can desperately search for a reason why that disastrous box score isn't actually your fault. And as we peel back the layers of how this particular organization operates, we begin to see a glaring institutional double standard in how poor performances are shielded versus how actual verifiable physical targeting of other players is completely ignored.
I gotta say this. Oh, but Caitlin Clark goes 3 of 14. Yeah, she's shooting from 32 foot away, and she's got 3 people on her, and she's getting her eyeballs raked out on a regular basis. Imagine being a player in this league and have your eyeball gouged out twice in 2 years, and not even 2 seasons. I mean, she's missed all those games.
The contrast in treatment is staggering and entirely predictable at this point. You have one side of the league where a player is forced to shoot poorly because they are constantly launching from 32 feet out while absorbing aggressive, unrelenting double and triple teams. They are getting physically battered every single night, taking uncalled shots to the face and literally having their eyes gouged multiple times in a matter of months. And what do? They simply play through it. They are forced to miss games due to legitimate, verifiable physical trauma inflicted by opponents who are headhunting them. Then you have the other side of the aisle. A player who routinely struggles to hit a wide-open layup in the paint, throws up brick after contested brick, and then collapses in a heap of phantom pain without a defender within an arm's reach. The media treatment of these 2 completely different realities tells you absolutely everything you need to know about the compromised state of professional women's basketball coverage. One player is expected to silently survive a gauntlet of flagrant fouls and physical abuse, while another demands an immediate whistle and a sympathetic news cycle for the crime of losing her own balance. But this immediate instinct to manufacture a victim narrative when the reality of the game isn't flattering is not a new development. It is a highly documented, deeply entrenched pattern of behavior.
Let's make sure we go over these. In 2024, she lied about the Chicago Sky being harassed by a very polite reporter asking questions. Yeah, remember that whole race hoax? Oh, we were getting harassed. Oh, and then the video came out, and it was like, the hell you were.
We have to rewind to last year to see exactly where this blueprint was finalized. When the team's performance on the court wasn't dominating the headlines in the way they wanted, a completely different story was suddenly injected into the news cycle. The shocking claim was that the Chicago roster was being aggressively targeted and harassed by media personnel outside of the arena. It was intentionally framed as a serious, intimidating encounter. A controversy perfectly designed in a laboratory to generate immediate sympathy, mobilize activists, and create a wave of digital outrage. The only problem with the narrative was the existence of actual footage. When the unedited video of the interaction finally surfaced online, it showed a completely standard, polite reporter asking incredibly basic questions in a highly public space. The team was never in danger. The narrative evaporated almost instantly, completely exposed by the raw, undeniable tape. But the tactical precedent was set in stone. If the basketball isn't working, create a crisis off the court. Force the media to talk about your struggle instead of your shooting percentage. And unfortunately for the fans who just want to watch hoops, that exact same playbook was dusted
for Arena from, of course, Caitlin Clark fans. I would say Fever fans, but let's be real. Let's keep it real. The mucky noises heard around the world. There was an investigation. Time stopped. The Indiana Fever sold out its own fans.
The escalation moved rapidly from claiming media harassment to alleging severe crowd-based hostility in enemy territory. The explosive claim this time was that opposing fans, specifically those supporting Caitlin Clark in the Indiana arena, were making monkey noises during the game. This is not a casual accusation. This is the exact kind of allegation that stops the entire sporting world in its tracks. It triggers massive league-wide internal investigations, endless media firestorms, and severe reputational damage to entire fan bases. The host rightly points out the cowardice of the home organization, which immediately panicked and essentially sold out their own ticket-buying supporters before any verifiable facts were even established. The entire sports ecosystem was put on trial based on a claim that, once again, began to completely unravel the very moment actual scrutiny and audio analysis were applied. No recordings corroborated the claim. Time essentially stopped while the league scrambled to find proof that simply did not exist. And yet, even when the hard evidence completely failed to support the initial wave of outrage, the narrative was fiercely protected and defended by the very people employed to lead these franchises.
And then, of course, we have the Sandy Brondello protected species, another race hoax, in which she doubled down on it just yesterday, doubled down. Had the opportunity to come out and be a grown woman and admit, yeah, I've done the research. I found out it had nothing to do with race.
This is the exact moment where the situation shifts from a single player desperately deflecting blame to a massive systemic institutional failure. When you have a professional head coach allegedly standing at a podium and doubling down on a completely unverified, highly inflammatory claim, you have crossed a dangerous line. The bare minimum expectation for a leader in professional sports is that they operate within the bounds of reality. If a thorough investigation reveals that a perceived slur or racist action was completely non-existent, the adult response is to publicly clarify the situation, apologize for the damaging rush to judgment, and quickly move the team forward. Instead, we see a complete stubborn refusal to break character. The host's concept of a protected species within the league hierarchy becomes impossible to ignore right here. There is a bizarre underlying structural incentive to lean heavily into the controversy, to blindly embrace the hoax, rather than simply act like a grown woman and admit a mistake was made. They would rather burn down the reputation of the fans than admit their player heard a ghost. Which brings us right back to the disaster in Atlanta, where this exact same instinct to manufacture a localized crisis played out live on the hardwood.
So, here we go. Angel Reese leaves Atlanta Dream game with a leg injury. That's right. And you're going to see her take some extra hop steps and jump here because I don't know why. And she rolls her ankle and she hits the ground like a sack of potatoes.
You have to watch the mechanics of this play frame by frame to truly appreciate the absurdity of it. This is not a sudden violent twist of the ankle. This is not a player landing on someone else's foot in a crowded paint. This is a sequence of highly unnatural, deeply calculated movements. We are watching multiple distinct hop steps, a clear, undeniable traveling violation that goes completely uncalled by the officials who are seemingly afraid to blow the whistle. And then comes the dramatic collapse. The host ruthlessly compares it to a sack of potatoes hitting the floor, and the visual evidence is incredibly hard to dispute. The player hits the deck directly after a wildly unsuccessful, embarrassing attempt at the rim, immediately looking up and begging for a foul call from the referees despite absolutely zero defensive contact. It is a premeditated, calculated performance. When the shot fails to drop, the backup plan is instantly initiated. Hit the deck, grab the leg, and stop the clock. But the internet remains undefeated and rarely misses a detail, and eagle-eyed fans immediately noticed something very specific and highly ironic about the specific footwear involved in this phantom injury.
Don't know. By the way, a lot of people are bringing up her shoe. Yes, the Angel Reese ones. Great shoe. Interesting. She rolled her ankle. They were working on her knee. Whose shoe is she wearing? The Reese ones again. Uh-oh. Gotta protect that species. Yeah. Oh, is this the shoes?
The branding irony on display here is absolutely off the charts and a total nightmare for the sponsors. We are looking at a professional athlete reportedly rolling an ankle and demanding urgent medical attention on the floor, all while wearing her own newly minted signature shoe. The highly promoted Reese'S, a product line theoretically designed and engineered for elite athletic performance and joint protection. The commentary rightly points out the disastrous optical nature of this entire sequence. If you are going to blatantly fake an injury, or even if you somehow miraculously legitimately rolled an ankle completely on your own without a single player touching you, doing it in the exact sneaker you are actively trying to sell to the consumer market is an absolute marketing catastrophe. It immediately begs a very uncomfortable question for the corporate executives. Is the shoe itself fundamentally flawed and dangerous to wear, or is the player wearing it simply utilizing it as a prop for a desperate excuse? The contrast is sharp and deeply embarrassing when you consider the extreme durability and performance expected from top-tier footwear endorsements across the rest of the basketball industry. You can bet no one is rushing to the store to buy the shoe that allegedly took down its own creator without any outside help.
Wow. Looked like the normal way Angel goes in for a layup and misses. Angel Reese blows up the layup per usual, and then with her classic move, cries and undercuts Elizabeth Williams, claiming she was fouled. Such a joke.
I mean, look at this battle.
Oh! Did you hear her hit the ground? Yeah, it looked like she got shot by a sniper in it.
The entire sequence is a masterclass in aggressive deflection and on-court acting. First comes the blown layup, a hallmark of the disastrous 23% shooting performance we broke down earlier. It is a shot a high school junior varsity player is expected to make blindfolded. Then, the immediate frantic shift into damage control. Instead of getting back on defense and attempting to make up for the mistake, the player creates a chaotic, dangerous collision out of thin air, wildly undercutting Elizabeth Williams and going down incredibly hard. The dramatic wailing on the floor, the absolute unadulterated theater of the moment, it looks far more like a deleted scene out of a low-budget action movie rather than a professional basketball game. The commentary hilariously compares it to taking live fire from a sniper in a turret, which perfectly captures the absolute absurdity of the physical reaction compared to the complete lack of actual contact on the play. It is a desperate, flailing bid for a rescue whistle to cover up a fundamental, embarrassing failure to execute at the rim. And when the excuses eventually run dry and the tape tells the truth, the defense narrative from the fan base takes a truly bizarre turn into the Twilight Zone.
Garbage play from a garbage player. Gravity is always trying to keep Angel Reese down. Gravity's racist. Gravity is obviously doing the bidding of white supremacy. Why they got to be gravity? I don't know, Angel. I don't know.
We have officially reached the point in the discourse where basic fundamental physics are being blamed for a catastrophic lack of athletic coordination. The commentary brilliantly and ruthlessly mocks the prevailing idea that gravity itself is somehow targeting this specific player. Think about how insane this defense has become. When you cannot blame the opposing defender because no one was within 3 feet of you, and you cannot blame the rim because you missed it entirely, what exactly is left in the excuse playbook? The host violently satirizes the extreme lengths the media and fans will go to in order to shield this level of awful play, openly joking about the idea that gravity is somehow racist or doing the systemic bidding of white supremacy. It is a hilarious, cutting encapsulation of the extreme mental gymnastics required to watch a highly paid professional athlete repeatedly fall over their own clumsy feet and instantly try to assign blame to an invisible external force. The sheer terror.
We gotta watch this.
Angel Reese, part 24! How about some more? Let's go!
Corner 3, look at me.
Bang! Great positioning. Give her the rock. It's time to clock in and go to work. 1 dribble, 2 dribble. Ba, bing, bong, bang!
Her butterfingers the way the ball just slipped out of her hands.
Butter? Did you say butter? Butter!
Let us completely strip away the drama and examine the actual raw handling of the basketball. The commentary refuses to pull any punches, likening the ball handling skills to a confused toddler playing in a sandbox, or a newborn giraffe desperately struggling to stand up on wobbly legs. These are harsh, brutal descriptions, but the isolated footage provides all the necessary damning context. Watch the play again. The ball simply slips out of her hands without a single ounce of defensive pressure applied. A basic, unforced drop. It is a fundamental, catastrophic breakdown in basic hand-eye coordination that you rarely see tolerated beyond the middle school level. When a professional franchise builds their entire marketing apparatus around a specific player, there is a baseline assumption of athletic competence.
10,000 steps a day. She gets it on one drive to the basket.
What kind of siding do you want? Vinyl? Wood? How about brick?
Another casual 5 turnovers for number 5. It's like she's playing hot potato out there. Hot potato, hot potato. Bang! She's responsible for 32% of her team's total turnovers.
The raw statistical reality of these fumbles is absolutely devastating to the franchise. We are talking about 5 unforced turnovers in a single vital game, being single-handedly responsible for a staggering 32% of your entire team's total turnovers is not just a bad night. It is an anchor dragging down the entire roster and ruining the season. The host jokes about the player treating the ball like a scalding hot potato, but for the coaching staff frantically trying to keep their jobs, there is absolutely nothing funny about this metric. You cannot build a winning, sustainable culture, you cannot secure a deep playoff spot, and you certainly cannot improve a dismal, highly embarrassing 9-17 record when your primary focal point is routinely handing the ball directly back to the opposition on a third of your offensive possessions. It is a massive, glaring liability that opposing coaches are actively exploiting. And yet, instead of getting in the gym and aggressively addressing these fundamental flaws in her game, the cycle of off-court drama and grievance simply spins up again to effectively distract the media from looking too closely at the disastrous box score.
Congratulations, Angel. You got yourself back in the cycle. Somehow. All it took was a Bubba Wallace, Jussie Smollett, Angel Reese race hoax. Once again, folks, it's never, ever about.
The commentary draws a very direct, highly controversial line between these repeated on-court theatrics and some of the most infamous public relations disasters of the modern era. The direct comparisons to Jussie Smollett and Bubba Wallace are incredibly heavy accusations, but they are deeply rooted in the repetitive, exhausted nature of these controversies. The core argument being relentlessly made here is that this specific sector of the sports world has become entirely reliant on a manufactured, heavily racialized crisis roughly every single year just to maintain a shred of national relevance. It is a vicious, exhausting cycle. The actual on-court product completely fails to capture organic, positive attention from casual viewers, so a localized grievance is intentionally elevated to the national stage. It creates a temporary, highly toxic spike in social media engagement, but it fundamentally and permanently damages the long-term credibility of the sport. Viewers tune in to watch elite competition and incredible athleticism, not to endlessly dissect a heavily disputed, highly politicized narrative about crowd behavior or phantom injuries. This constant deliberate shifting of focus away from the game itself points directly to a massive systemic failure in leadership at the very top of the organization.
That's y'all's fault. That's y'all's fault. Oh my God, quit making them talk about us. Peace, I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
The final piece of this dysfunctional puzzle lands directly on the commissioner's desk, exactly where it belongs. The host refuses to let the executives off the hook, directly addressing Kathy Engelbert and laying the total blame for this ongoing media circus squarely at her feet. By actively allowing these non-basketball narratives to completely dominate the conversation, by systematically failing to strictly penalize obvious flopping, and by turning a blind eye when protected players and coaches aggressively double down on unverified damaging allegations, the league creates its own highly toxic environment. They have intentionally cultivated a situation where people are indeed finally talking about the sport, but for all the absolute wrong reasons. The frustration from actual basketball purists is palpable and growing louder by the day. Fans desperately want to watch high-level basketball, but they are constantly being spoon-fed a low-quality soap opera instead. So the ultimate question shifts directly to you. Are we simply watching a struggling athlete desperately trying to mask incredibly poor fundamentals with theatrical fake injuries? Or is this simply the new depressing standard operating procedure for a league that clearly values digital drama over athletic development? Let me know exactly where you stand in the comments below. Make sure to aggressively hit that subscribe button if you want the absolute unfiltered reality of modern sports, and we will catch you in the next breakdown.